At day one of SEC Media Days in Nashville, Commissioner Greg Sankey addressed his concerns surrounding NIL, or name, image, and likeness, and the lack of uniformity for rules and regulations across different states. Although he pointed out NIL has largely been a net positive and provides opportunities for student athletes, Sankey said they deserve something better than a patchwork of state laws. These concerns led him and representatives from all 14 SEC schools to D.C. in June, where they spoke with dozens of members of Congress calling for a national standard that ensures everyone is playing by the same rules.
If states will not enforce the laws, and states are going to prohibit the NCAA or conferences from enforcing these reasonable policies, congressional action is then the only way to provide a national uniform standard for name, image, and likeness activity, and to draw the lines around the boundaries that do not become simply pay for play. Our student athletes deserve something better than a race to the bottom at the state legislature level, as the efforts are made to create what are perceived as a competitive edge through state laws that are not overseen. Future student athletes, those who right now might be 15 or 16 or 17 years old, they deserve something better than to need to sort through a fully unregulated marketplace, being approached by individuals who present themselves as something that they may not be.
Chip, one of the things that SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey talked about is wanting uniformity among the states when it comes to NIL. What was your biggest takeaway from what he had to say?
You will hear Commissioner Sankey and really a lot of commissioners, a lot of leagues around the country wanting U.S. Congress to come in and help them with some standardization, because right now it is all over the place. You know, it's competitive on a state legislature level, where each state has their own individual laws regarding NIL, and you know, it's not at all what it was orchestrated to be. When you talk about these collectives and such, you know, you got these collectives paying everybody, as opposed to somebody like Brock Bowers going out and becoming a great player and then earning money off his name, image, and likeness. It's become a sort of a money grab and a lot of different things. So he had some very strong words in there where he was talking about a race to the bottom. The way that the current setup is that everybody's trying to get a better state law so that they can win in recruiting. That's what's going on. It's not at all what it was designed. And the NCAA certainly is kind of powerless in this regard. And, you know, he believes that the U.S. Congress is the way to go to establish some kind of standardization across conferences, or at least within conference. He said he's fully prepared to, you know, for the SEC to set in their own standards, but right now they're preempted by state law. So that's a real mess. But the SEC, led by Greg Sankey, sent a huge contingent to lobby in Washington, D.C. back earlier in the summer. How much headway that was able to make, I don't know. I don't know what Congress can do. They have some other problems that they're having to deal with as well. But the solution he made clear, it's very important that they reach one soon, because the current way they're operating is unsustainable.
There's some positives for NIL. I think a lot of people would agree, but Sankey talked about really wanting to avoid a pay-to-play situation. And I do think that ties into what you were saying about different states and how then you kind of it flips what NIL's intent was.
That's right. I mean, he's really careful, because this is, by and large, good for the student athletes. And, you know, certainly, you know, the SEC and every conference wants their student athletes to benefit, you know, from all the money that's coming in otherwise. But the problem is it's not the way it was supposed to be done. When you talk about these collectives, it basically is a pay for play, and sooner or later you're going to get into a situation where you're talking about taxes, and he has met with you know, student athletes in the SEC and beyond about whether they want employee status, and they firmly do not want that. And so unless you can do something to change these collectives, I think that's where it's headed. And he's trying to, you know, head it off at the pass.
And he used the word equitable a lot, because there's some states where if the law is kind of lax, it becomes a free-for-all. Right. And then in some states, what if your law is extremely strict, and then that school is hampered?
Yeah, and in the center of it all is transparency, right? I mean, nobody does anybody truly know what anybody's making unless you got access to their tax records? I don't know whether Brock Bowers is making $3 million or $300,000. Both of them are good, and both are better than the alternative. But when he's making $3 million and another tight end across the country is unable to do something like that, they're looking for a little bit more equitability, at least in the league, and then certainly across the entire country.
Chip, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks to all of you for watching. Make sure you continue to follow along as we cover SEC Media Days here in Nashville.